Good evening and welcome back to welcome back to the Mackmyra Inn, guys. With me, as always, is my fellow landlord, Rich McKean. Rich, good evening.
Good evening, Mick. Happy to be back. Another end of the week.
Yes, honestly, this is becoming a really happy place to be at the moment, And our VIP patron for this week is Matt from Nc'Nean. Good evening, Matt.
Good evening, guys. How you getting on?
Very good, my friend. How are you?
Hi, really good. I've just installed a dartboard today in the back of my office, so special prop for the Mackmyra Inn.
Like it. Happy with that. Well, Rich, one of us has got to pony up and get a pool table, I think.
Well, we need something because we've had pub snacks in the background now, and then dartboard as well. So it's getting more of a pub vibe, but it's always coming from the VIP patrons coming in. I think, we need something.
Damn it. Evening tea.
Any room for a pool table with all that whiskey behind you?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You go to queue up a shop and you end up smashing like 3 bottles or something,
Like one of those little tabletop ones, little small one might do.
That would probably be a bit more appropriate, Rich. Yeah. Good thinking, Batman. Good thinking. So, guys, welcome back to another evening down the pub. We're not too far away, hopefully, fingers crossed, from an actual proper Friday afternoon or evening session down the actual pub, Evening Bully. Looking forward to that, really. We've got some good news. We've got some exciting news. We've just went live with our promotion for our brand new seasonal range, our spring seasonal Bjork South, which will launch on Wednesday of next week. So that's available now on mackmyra.co.uk for pre-orders. So get that booked in. Be one of the first people to get your hands on it. And I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, me and Rich are obviously in a privileged position doing the jobs that we do. So we've already got our bottle, and it is. Now, we are a little bit biased, obviously, but however, it honestly is really, really good, and it's a good eye-opener as well. So tonight, we're going to be chatting with Matt about Nc'Nean, what they do, what they stand for, etc. So that should be really interesting. We've got a few shows coming up. Rich, you want to touch on them?
Yeah, we've got the launch show for Bjork South, the new seasonal, which is on Wednesday. So we're being joined by Angela Delaccio, and we've got 4 guests coming on to chat with us about people who've had samples of the whiskey, speak about what they, their thoughts on it, and have them chatting with Angela as well. And next week, another session of the Inn where we've got drinking with friends. That's the handle for Instagram, which is Aaron and Petra, 2 really great people who, Micky's got coming on. I'm going to have a day off next Friday. So it'll just be Micky and the patrons. So tune in. If you can do without me, then tune in for a week.
Yeah, the beer gardening's tidying up, and Rich is on gardening detail that week. So, also, Rich, don't forget on Monday of this week to celebrate International Women's Day.
Yes.
We've got our good friend and friend of the brand, Moa Nielsen, Swedish whiskey girl, hosting a ladies' night at the Mackmyra Inn, basically on Monday night with our good friends Nicola and Erin, who are also big whiskey drinkers and that as well. So tune in for that one on Monday, guys. That should be really nice. Moa will be behind the bar while me and Rich put our feet up, taking a well-deserved break, and let the ladies rule the roost, as it were. But before all that. It must be that's the bell for must be about 6:05, guys. So 18:05. So it's mine and Richard's round. So what we having, Matt? What are you having this evening, sir?
Perfect. Well, I really want to be trying that Bjork South because that sounds absolutely delightful. It's a birch sap wine cask, yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah, well done.
That sounds great. Yeah, I've had a couple of your seasonals. We've just had the apple blom between the team because we're looking at Calvados casks and it's bloody delicious.
So there's no more apple blom left on mackmyra.co.uk. The only time you're going to find an apple blom now is in one of the retailers. Bearing in mind that was 2 years ago that was released. Exactly 2 years ago that was released. So if you do find a bottle out in the wild, snaffle it. We've got them more available.
Yeah, that was yummy. But yeah, what we're drinking, or what I'm drinking certainly, is a Whiskey 6 from Nc'Nean. So it's our signature serve for our whiskey. It's just meant as a light, delicate, and easy way of getting people into whiskey and more people enjoying whiskey.
So what goes into that, Matt?
It's called. So yeah, whiskey is dead simple. So it's 2 parts Nc'Nean, or 2 whiskey, so 4 parts soda. So 2 + 4 = 6, and ideally to be drunk at 6 p.m, which is just handy. That's the start time to your show. And it's sort of like the Scotch version of an aperitif. It's meant to be that change of mindset between your work day and your fun time.
Nice, Rich. What about yourself? What you got, sir?
I'm going in for the Bjork Sav. I don't mean to be a tease to everyone that hasn't been able to try it, but yeah, I think it just felt like the right thing to have for me. So yeah, so that's the bottle we've got there. As Matt said, yes, Swedish birch sap wine. There's some of the casks that have gone into this have previously held that wine in. It's spring in a glass. The way that yak liquor was captured perfectly, I think, and I think a lot of people agree.
Or autumn,
autumn, yeah, really did get that autumn feel. This is spring in a glass. So packaging, again, it's all about the liquid, of course, but this is to represent the birch tree. So sort of white and then sort of dark brown, blackish patches, and then vibrant green across the top. But the nose on it, the palate on it, it's spring. It's fresh. It's delicate, but there's like a waxy texture to the nose as well, which I'm a big fan of texture and mouthfeel, full stop. And if I can find that on the nose, as I can with this, it always bodes well for the palate for me. So I'll say cheers and ask you, Mick, what you're having.
So, because we've got Matt on, and I really quite like the sound of the Whiskey 6, quite frankly, I went and did a Mackmyra twist on the Whiskey 6. So the only ingredient that's changed is the base whiskey that's gone into it. Obviously, Matt's gone for Nc'Nean with the soda water and the sprig of mint. I changed that to Nc'Nean for Brooks whiskey. So gone, 2 parts Brooks over a nice big lump of ice, topped up with some soda water and a nice big sprig of mint. Because all drinks I've been doing lately have got a big sprig of mint with them, because I've got a forever growing mint plant in my kitchen window, Matt. You know what I mean? We bought it ages ago, right? So now, literally every long drink I do has a sprig of mint in it, because I've got it readily available, and it just never seems to be going down any. It just keeps going.
Yeah, mint's a wonder plant, because not only is it just really, really nice smelling, really nice tasting, you can't kill it even if you try. Like, it's if it didn't taste nice, it would be a weed, but it's just so good.
Mine sits in a south-facing window in my kitchen, right? On just a wee tub, on a plate, on a side plate, yeah. And every time I'm doing the dishes, yeah, I just pop a bit of water into the plate, and that's it. And then every time I make a long drink, I chop a wee bit of mint off and put it in the drink. That's it. It's ideal.
Easy, straight. It's good to have that on hand to make all the cocktails that you do with Mick, because we spend quite a lot of time drinking together online, and you've always got a cocktail in hand. Interested to hear anyone that's joining us this evening. Let us know what you've got in the glass. Let us know what you're having, what you're closing off your working week with. If you are closing it off, that is, of course. But let us know what your Friday night dram or drink might
Phil's
be.
got a beer. Nice.
Oh, nice.
Bully's on the Highland pot. Honestly, so Andrew Bullingham there, he's a massive Highland Park fan and a Mackmyra fan. Obviously, he's here pretty much every week. He's like one of the old drunk men in the corner all the time. Do you know what I mean? One of the proper regulars, staying there from like Monday morning till Friday evening, sort of kind of guy. I
do feel like he'd have a tankard behind the bar if this was.
Yeah. So Billy, Tamara, they've all got their own they've got their own tankards and glasses behind the bar. You know.
Yeah, Double Wood. We were talking about Double Wood with Charlie from the Balvenie last week. That's that's one of my favourite whiskies. I think that you can get in that sort of that bracket for sure. I think that's a delicious dram to be had. Yeah, and then Nc'Nean, there we go tomorrow. So
tomorrow. Thank you very much. Great
match one as well.
Tomorrow's our newest brand ambassador in Germany, covering the Cologne area. So she's been a big fan of the brand for a while, and she's managed to get herself a wee job with us, with our German colleagues covering Cologne for any brand ambassadorial work.
I didn't know she was covering Cologne, Mick. I know. Congratulations and welcome to the team tomorrow. I know I sent you a tweet, but I didn't know covering Cologne. I spent a little bit of time living in Aachen, so not too far away from Cologne, perhaps. So if there's anything I can do to put you in contact with anyone there tomorrow, you hit us up and let us know.
Fantastic. So I suppose the first talking point of the evening really should be, Matt, who are you? Who is Matt Hastings?
Who are you?
No chance. It's a nice family.
Different sort of pub. Yeah.
No football shirts. No.
So,
So I'm Matt. I'm the brand ambassador for Nc'Nean. We're a very small team, so I do quite a lot for the company as well. I do a lot of our social media, so the photography and the videography on the sites. I do that. Brand ambassador in UK sales. I also part of the blending team. Myself and Annabelle put together all of the whiskies that go into our batches, and hopefully in the future some fun special releases and stuff. I believe I've sent you two chaps our first technical special release, a little bit of the Nc'Nean, which you can enjoy later from my personal bottle as well.
That tastes even better.
My background is I used to run a good whiskey bar in London called Black Rock. I worked for that company for about 5 years, so I headed up their consultancy program for a long time, so creating cocktail menus and drinks programs around the world, as well as creating new products for people. We worked on a number of different things within the alcohol industry just to make better liquid. Our stated goal was that if you had an issue with liquid, we'd fix it. That's kind of my background. I kind of fell into Nc'Nean with a chance meeting with Annabelle while she was doing the shareholder meeting for Nc'Nean within BlackRock. And she's just such a cool human being. I was like, I really, really would like to work for you. So here's my CV. If you can find space anywhere in your company, I'd love to come. And with at the time, the imminent launch of the whiskey, she was like, yes, I'm pretty sure we can find a space for you.
Sweet, man.
Initially, I was brought on though to help with the UK on trade, but I was hired at 1 minute past 12 on April 1st. So I have done precisely 0 in the UK on trade because no one's been open.
Wow. So Mick and I joined just a few weeks before, more or less before lockdown came in. So we've only managed to leave our homes a handful of times at most to actually go out and do it. So we get to do a number of other things as well. So we're not just doing tastings. So Mick and I look after area sales. Mick does the north. I do the south of the UK, and various other things, helping with press releases here and there and whatnot. Because we are like you say, we're a pretty small team, especially as far as the UK goes. But to the one thing we don't get to do that I am instantly become envious of viewers involved in the blending side of it. That's something that it's happening in Sweden. Angela's in charge of it. She's got her lab and everything there. It's a bit too. We can't get there to come and give her any thoughts whether or not she'd want them. So that sounds very interesting to me. What does that involve? For you, what sort of work do you do with it?
Oh, it's a dream job for a start, which is delightful. We don't release that much whiskey because we don't make that much whiskey. LPA, which pure alcohol here, which is tiny in the realms of Scotch whiskey. We are easily one of the smallest. So when we're releasing the batches, that's every month or 2 months, and there'll be about 5,000 bottles. So I get let's say 30 or 40 samples sent to me of sort of like we'll go through the warehouse sheet and we'll find things that we think will probably be ready. We can sort of gauge by things that we've tasted before in similar areas and when it was distilled and all that jazz. We'll sit down and with myself and Annabelle, normally remotely at the moment, unfortunately, and we'll just sort of go through everything and try and Lego something together. So I can show you this within. I've literally just finished blending some bits for batch 6. So
wow,
my shelf here there's 40 samples.
Nice.
awesome. Yeah,
ex-bourbon casks. So we take a couple of days. We go through everything to get a good idea of what everything is, and then try and piece everything together to create a batch where, obviously, we're aiming for consistency like every other distillery. So our core sort of thing is to aim for 3 tasting notes of lemon posset, stone fruits, and caraway rye bread. So we want something that's obviously citrusy but creamy. Creamy is a really big thing for us. It comes across in our new make spirit a lot. So we have lots and lots of long chain fatty acid esters. So if you let me get sciencey for a second, it's kind of like ethyl laurate and ethyl capylate and things. So they are 14 plus carbon esters, which means they're oils. They are thick and viscous, and that comes across in our spirit as this kind of creamy, waxy texture. So we're always trying to aim for like a citrusy, creamy version of that. Stone fruits. So we use 2 different yeast strains at Nc'Nean for the young recipe. So we have a traditional distilling yeast in Anchor, and then we use something from Fermentus, which is more like a wine yeast, which really helps develop those stone fruit flavors. So we try and pick the casks that highlight that. And then the last bit is that kind of caraway rye bread. So there's a sort of malty breadiness that we're aiming for, coupled with kind of it's like a borderline menthol spice. I think it comes across as caraway, and I think it's quite clear when you come across a cask that has it. So we try and incorporate that into the blend, and we think that combination works really, really well for us. It's a nice balance between complexity but approachable flavors, which is what Nc'Nean should be. Like Nc'Nean exists to get more people into whiskey. You can't just do that by making something simple and easy drinking. You can't just do that by creating something complex. There needs to be that kind of balance between the two.
Yeah, balance is a word that Angela uses all the time as well. Just speaking about the whiskey in the glass as well, having balance, and complexity is important, but there needs to be balance to that complexity as well.
Yeah.
I think it's exciting what you guys are doing. I've been sort of watching in the build up to it. I know, if I'm not mistaken, was it one of Jim Swan helping in the early days?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he unfortunately passed away, I think 3 days before we started distilling or something like that. It was very soon, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's weird in a way, because it's been relatively liberating for the team to not have to follow his doctrine explicitly. Like, we've very much taken his advice, and we've created what we think is very good, but we also don't follow his advice in a few different areas. Like the multiple yeast strains thing, he was very much a fan of. But then we also do yeast trials every year, which was something I believe that he wasn't as keen on. So with the yeast trial, so 80% of our production is it's called young recipe, and that's that 2 yeast strain. Then we do 10% of the year on old recipe, which is just a more traditional Scotch. So single yeast strain, longer cut points, meant for longer term maturation. But then we do 10% of the year on yeast trials. So we add a third yeast to a young recipe, and it can be anything from around the world. We've tried rum yeast, champagne yeast, Chardonnay yeast, and it's things that are typically used for those products, and it's just to see what happens. Their flavor experiments. Hopefully over the years we'll be able to release some once we find some that are ready. There's some promising early signs. I mean, I've got a few up there. The rum yeast in particular, I think it's only 2 years old at the moment, but God, it's delicious. Like really, really good. Even at 2 years, I'd be quite happy to release that if we could legally call it whiskey, but we can't. Yeah, obviously.
That's a good thing. Putting your own stamp on something, I think, is important anyway. So we're all about, Mackmyra is all about respecting the tradition, but also looking to innovate and do new things and look to the future whilst respecting the tradition of things as well. As long as you've got a baseline to start off, as you did, and as you said about with Jim and his work and his advice, going on then to do some of your own things, I think absolutely fine as far as my humble opinion goes on it. Yeah.
So Matt, we've heard about your philosophy essentially in your production and what you're aiming for, but essentially, who are Nc'Nean? why did you decide to become a distillery? Really, what was the thought process behind that?
Okay, cool. So the distillery was sort of founded, the concept in 2013 by Annabelle, our founder. Annabelle was working as has got a strong family connection to Scotland. So her family own the farm basically where Nc'Nean is. So they had this lovely big house on the Morvenna Peninsula. I don't know if you've ever tried to travel to the Morvenna Peninsula. It is very much the middle of nowhere.
One of the things, sorry, Matt, I was going to say at some point today was just about how difficult a place to get to that is. I think you guys in Ardnamurchan have to be amongst the sort of most difficult distilleries on the mainland of Scotland. Of course, no ferry involved, but that's a long old drive, isn't it? I think
that's the thing. Like even though we're on the mainland, you still have to get a ferry to get to Nc'Nean because otherwise you add an hour and a half to your journey if you don't. So you have to go.
Oh, wow. Where'd you go? Kilhoan above.
So you obviously, like if let's say you're driving, you go up from Glasgow, you go up past Loch Lomond, you take the Glencoe Road all the way around to take. The Glencoe ferry. I forgot what that was called. There's a small ferry that basically cuts out an hour and a half, so you don't have to go all the way up to Fort William and then round the loch and then all the way back down.
Oh, and then back on yourself again. Like if you're driving from Glasgow to Campbelltown. It's easier to drive down to and get the ferry across as opposed to going all the way up and around past
I'm trying to remember the name of it now because I'm on it, 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and I've my mind's just gone blank for it too. But it's about 15 minutes south of Fort William, right? Isn't it? So
you hop on that ferry, and then there's an hour and a half of single track road before you get to our distillery. So we are the very definition of remote.
So are you the most westerly distillery on the Scottish mainland then?
Ardnamurchan, I think, is.
We are. Ardnamurchan claim to be the most westerly distillery.
Well, Ardnamurchan also claim to be.
We're probably. I mean, it's a matter of foot. Like it's probably 100, 200 foot or whatever. I'm not sure.
What did you do? Did you just build a shed at one side of the complex and
build a bigger fence?
It counts. Yeah, big fence out there.
But yeah, the purpose of the distillery is to be the most ecologically friendly distillery in Scotland. We want to set an example that others will follow. We don't want it to be our unique selling point. We want it to be the unique thing that we're doing now that everyone is doing in 20, 30 years. So everything that we do is a perpetual kind of improvement cycle of trying to be as ecologically friendly as possible. So it started with, we've got a biomass boiler on site. So I think it's about 80% of our energy, which is all that powers the stills, is biomass. So we harvest trees from the estate where we're on, so there's no associated cost with transporting fuel really, which is great. And then using trees from the estate rather than fossil fuels, like pretty much every distillery in Scotland. That's an 80% reduction in carbon emissions, which is enormous. You wouldn't think that burning trees is actually significantly better for the production cycle than it is burning coal.
It's actually crazy. See, when you say it like that, right, and you go, so we're burning trees and people go, you're doing what? You go, no, actually, guys, chill out. We're replanting them, and it's actually better for the environment. It just boggles people's mind. So if you took Nc'Nean, right, and put it on its end, you'd essentially be Mackmyra.
Yeah, we use biofuel for ours as well. Draft gets instead of going off to make these so-called fanciful happy cows, who are only happy, and I say it every time I think we're on here and it comes up, but they're only happy because they're being fed, not because they're eating.
It's Richard's sticking point.
I know. But that gets sent off and converted into biopellets, into biofuel that comes back and then goes into what I imagine will be a very similar sort of power source or setup that you guys have got. And I think it's great to hear you say about we're sort of trying to set a precedent, or at least trying to sort of set something up that other people can look at in the future and say, well, look, it worked with those guys. And because the Gravity Distillery that we operate in, so 7 stories up, malted barley to the top, each floor on the way down, next stage of the process. 45% energy from that distillery compared to our previous one at the Brooks Distillery, which was a horizontal traditional sort of fashion. But that this new one going up in Leith, that's I think now underway. Yeah, so that's
It is, yeah.
So we've done something that other people.
I just bought the poster of their
cool.
their like display mock-up for the distillery.
Yeah, awesome. I think
hopefully it's up next to the new one you have then.
Oh, I think
it's going up in my living room next to my Spider-Man poster. But
you want to have Spider-Man
match perfectly.
Surely he should be climbing up the Gravity Distillery, swinging around, just a spot check, making sure everyone's doing their job through all the windows, just inspecting quickly. Yeah,
I cannot wait for that Marvel crossover. It'd be fantastic.
Can you imagine that? Spider-Man's first distillery visit.
Just keeping all of the whiskey in the glass as he just swings from building to building, not spilling a drop out of his Glencairn. Yeah.
Fantastic. So obviously, we've got quite a bit of things in common from distillery to distillery. Whether we're in Sweden or we're at Nc'Nean, and I think one of the biggest things as well is probably sustainability. You said you chop down the trees in the local area to feed the biomass plant. We do a very, very similar thing as well. So we're what we call carbon neutral. So any CO2 that does escape the process and does get out is captured by the trees in our surrounding area in the part of the forest. And when those filters essentially get full, we also chop them down, put them into briquettes to feed the biomass boiler as well. So that's another thing that goes in there, and then obviously we're replanting as we go as well. So that's obviously quite a similar thing to what you guys are doing as well, yeah?
Yeah. So we harvest from the estate for the biomass boilers. We recycle or reuse 99.97% of our waste. I think it is. That was the figure from 2019.
Nice.
There is a slight element of happy coos, as you dislike, but in our case, it's because we are a farm, so we have cows on the estate, so we feed the cows that are there. So it also means that we have a reduction in emissions for removing the waste because we don't take it anywhere; it stays on the farm. It just goes about 200 yards down the field to feed the cows. We also recycle our water system. So rather than having a river or a cooling tower, we have a cooling pond that's next to the distillery, which means that all of our cooling water is constantly recycled and reused, and it's just rainwater, which also means we don't have to chemically treat it. There's lots of sort of reduction of chemical areas that not a lot of distilleries talk about because it's not particularly fancy or endearing, but it's obviously very key to what we're trying to promote. We were very, very nearly caustic free. The only place we use caustic now is in our mash tun, and it's because we can't clean it efficiently with anything other than caustic currently. We're about to try some new methods. We had bought an enzyme cleaner to try and clean the mash tuns, but it didn't work. However, it now does work in our wash still, which is fantastic. So we don't use any caustic from the mash tun onwards because the processes are all either enzyme based or cleaned in another way. So that's great for sort of our reduction methods. Sustainability wise, our bottle is
recycled glass
bottle in the world. So we use 100 recycled clear glass, which is the first for the whiskey industry globally. Using recycled glass is a 40% reduction in carbon emissions, and that doesn't include harvesting new material. So new glass, flint glass, requires 80-90% new material every time.
Well, Matt, since you talk about recycling, so in Sweden there's a very strong culture for recycling glass bottles. I think it's close to the last figures I saw for, I think 2020 would have been 95% of glass being recycled there. And with our moment bottles, if you've seen our sort of our top range of bottles of whiskies that we release, I've just happened, because I've got a tasting with one later, I just so happen to have one there, as Mick does. So with these, these are around about £100 a bottle, which for a lot of people, that's a sort of the upper mark of where they might spend their money. And with
It
that,
is our super premium range, though, Rich. Do you know what I mean?
it's super premium range, and therefore, it's very limited in number. It's our really exclusive sort of whiskies. But if you buy that bottle, and bearing in mind most of our customers are, currently at least in Sweden, where there is a culture of recycling glass, you've got a bit of a. What do you do when you finish that bottle that you spent, a good amount of money on, that you've hopefully really, really enjoyed as well, and you want to keep it, turn it into a lampshade, or just not throw it away or something, but really they want to recycle it. So we've got these recycled rubber bands, from recycled bicycle tires that come off. And this is going to make a loud noise as it drops. Always, so that comes off. The metal plaque with the Mackmyra sign on and logo underneath it, and your bottle number comes off. So you then just got a plain bottle that you can recycle, but then keep the plaque as a memory. So
nice.
It's just one of another things. There's so much, I think, between our two distilleries, where there's a lot of crossover and a lot of thought about sustainability and sort of environmental protection and everything. Where I think it's brilliant to have you on and talk about it. Something else that's similar is I think or might be coming up for you. Perhaps you'll need to tell me a bit more about it. Sort of seasonal releases. We've got our seasonal whiskies. We've got Bjork Sav that's out now, the spring one. But have you got something of a similar vein happening at Nc'Nean? Mick, maybe so you can.
Yeah, I do. But we will certainly have special releases in the future. The plan at the moment is obviously we're trying to get more people into whiskey. We want to make it as accessible as possible. So we want our special releases, rather than talking about the technical side, to be all about flavour. So the technical information will be released, obviously, because we're quite a transparent distillery. I mean, you can look at the batch numbers on every single one of our releases, and you can see the exact casks that went into every single whiskey that we've ever made.
For us, more or less, yeah. So
what we want to do are create probably 2 seasonal releases that will come out, let's say, spring and autumn. Obviously, we're going to miss spring this year because it's rapidly approaching, and we're still sorting out the botanical spirit and the regular whiskey, so it's not going to happen. But hopefully in autumn this year, we'll have our first special release, and it will be something small, again, probably just under or around 5,000 bottles, and it will be based around flavors and individual people. So I mean, like I said, we're a very small team. There's 10 of us at the distillery, and we're all fairly interesting human beings, I like to think, that all have very radically different tastes, which is quite nice. So we can bring across these personal stories from the individuals at the distillery, bring them into the blending process, and create interesting things to that person's sort of liking, to their specifications from the stock that we have, from the experiments that we have, and release that as something sort of relatively consistent as a regional special move, as a seasonal special moving forward, which would be really nice.
So this
before you jump in there, so talking about what Rich just flashed up there, that'll be time for round 2.
I was going to ask where the bell was, Mick. That was going to be.
You need a chance to breathe, son. Do you know what I mean?
You and I, mate.
That's the halfway point, essentially. So that's time for Rich to put his hand in his pocket and get the second round in, which expects some butterflies potentially up on the screen.
Well, I'll do that, but it's Matt. Matt's basically loaning me the money for the round because it's him that supplied this for us. So tell us. You said at the beginning this has come out of your personal stock. This is something that
it is. Yeah, you have got a sample from bottle 121 of Nc'Nean. So Nc'Nean was our kind of private release way back now. What was that in? Was it August or September last year?
I think it was September, was it not?
I can't remember exactly, but it's a very small release. So 1,320 bottles. It's the same recipe as Nc'Nean that we release consistently as our core expression, but it's at cask strength. So there's only 5 casks that have gone into there. There's 3 STR red wine casks. So STR red wine is shaped up to recharge.
Yeah,
and then 2 ex-bourbon casks.
The right tune to my heart.
Yeah, because this is. I spoke earlier about the Bjork Sav. What I like about it, you can find that texture on the nose straight away, and you can with this. immediately.
Yeah.
And some of those you spoke earlier about, sort of creaminess being something that you look for. That's texture, obviously, for me. And this is that. I thought there was some like dark fruits as well, but also some vanilla sweetness. So I guess if you
the vanilla sweetness, bang on, like vanilla cream soda.
Yeah,
Yeah.
On the nose.
But there's something to it. Like I only had it on the initial sort of nose. When I went back for a follow up, I couldn't quite get it. But one of the first things I thought was like a mocha, like a sort of a chocolatey coffee. It was there, and then it went, and then it's not there again. So it might have just been some initial thing, but that to me, that's robust and sweet at the same time. Basically, that's my jam. I'll say, yeah.
Yeah, I'm obviously exceptionally proud of Nc'Nean. It was the first thing that me and Annabelle worked on together to create interesting liquid.
Well, cheers then. I'll say, Scott, Stan and thanks very much. Yeah. Mm.
Honestly, but it's interesting. Obviously, well, it's not that interesting. It's probably a foregone conclusion that you've used STR casks coming on the back of obviously having Jim Swan as a consultant.
Yeah.
Pretty much everywhere Jim's gone, God rest his soul, and what he did was amazing wherever he's been going, wherever he went, should I say, and wherever he's going to go to now. But yeah, so STR seems to be basically what he championed, probably over and above quite a lot of other things as well, eh?
Yeah. What do you think the reason for that?
Yeah. So a lot of his work was about creating incredible whiskey at a young age. So it's more than possible of making the best whiskey you've ever tasted being 3 years old, much like it's more than possible that a 50-year-old whiskey you've tasted is crap. And it's basically just down to how you go through every step of the process. There's so many variables that you can fiddle with, even within the relatively strict rules of single malt Scotch whiskey, to create something unique and interesting. The two big things that Jim had taught us is the STR casks and the double yeast blend. So the STR casks, you take 5-7-year-old Portuguese, Spanish red wine casks, shave 2 millimeters off the inside, retoast them and rechar them, and that some of the rest of the oak in the cask.
Matt, if I can just interject for a moment. So I think we lost you just after you said you shaved 2 millimeters off, toast and rechar, and then we lost you for a moment there. So, would you mind sort of going back from the 2 millimeters shaved off? Start there.
Yeah. Okay. No worries. 2 millimeters shaved off. Retoasted, recharred. That caramelizes the sugars that are residual from the wine and the oak. And when you put new make spirit into those casks, you get a lot of complexity and a lot of development very, very quickly.
Yes.
Now it does tend to plateau quite quickly as well. So when these casks reach 5-6 years old, they're probably not going to develop a lot more flavor wise, but they will mellow as any other spirit. But it means that we can create a kind of depth of flavor very, very quickly. The second thing, which I think is probably more important from Jim, is the 2 yeast blend on a clear wort. So I think we again getting quite geeky in technology, but we use a hyper clear wort. So when we take the liquid from the mash tun, that sweet liquid that we ferment and then turn into the beer, that turns into the spirit, that turns into the whiskey, having a very, very clear wort just gives your yeast more of a chance to develop flavors of its own. So the cloudier the wort, the more chance you're going to get sort of barley flavors is sort of the best way of putting it. They can be good, they can be bad, but it's a thickness about it. If you use a hyper clear wort, the yeast struggles to develop flavors as quickly, but it has more room to develop flavors. So when you have longer maturations like we do, so we do 3 at 114 hours and 2 at 68, I think it is. So even our shorter maturations, all of it's blended together, even they're relatively long within Scotch. The longer maturation gives the yeast more chance to work, and using 2 yeast strains means we've got more diversity within the yeast to produce more interesting flavors. So using a traditional distilling yeast will get you that yield, that get you that high ABV that you need, and then using what we use from Fermentis, that kind of wine yeast, will develop more of those kind of fruitier esters, more of that stone fruit, more of those longer chain esters that add that texture, that creaminess. So it's that kind of combination of hyperclear wort and 2 yeasts that produce a very, very clean, fruity, beautiful new make spirit. Like our new make spirit by itself is delicious. It's why our other product, the botanical spirit, is made from our new make spirit, because we wanted to do something interesting with it. We didn't want to just release a new make. We think that would sell as a product, but not consistently as something.
Yeah, not as consistently.
To go back to.
Yeah.
Whereas creating, I mean, it's a gin style product. It's a very floral spirit. It's sort of accentuating those fruity notes and creating something that you'd be more likely to go back to. So drinking this as you would drink a gin, so adding it to tonic, mixing it into cocktails that you already like with gin, just to give it a new dimension. So trying like a Beasley's or trying a Negroni or whatever with it works really, really well.
Awesome. So we I think I heard from Mick.
By itself.
Well, we lost you for a second there.
You go.
You were frozen on the bottom. I was only saying, you talk about your new make spirit. I mean, you clearly seem proud of it itself, as I'm sure everyone in the team is. Now we've got our own. I think Mick's probably reaching for it now.
Well, I was gonna, but the best person to talk about our new make spirit actually is Matt.
Yeah, okay.
Quite a bit, and it was a favourite of his when he worked at BlackRock.
So so this is what I heard from you. Matt was a fan of the Vithund, so we're very proud of our new make spirit as well. So, if describing it in sort of 3 words would be, fruity, sort of warming spices. That's 2 words, but called it one, and sort of herbaceous notes, a herbal sort of vegetal note to it as well. So, you said to Mick before that you were a big fan of it. What made you a fan? Working at BlackRock with it.
The Vithund is just. It's just yummy. It's a really nice spirit, and it's a really fun way of introducing people to the kind of the entire production process of whiskey. So, especially in BlackRock, where everything is about sort of accessibility and bringing more people into the category and trying to make everyone as comfortable as possible ordering whiskey and learning more about whiskey. If you can present new make spirit to them and say, like, this is halfway there, this is what whiskey was before it became whiskey, you learn more about where flavors come from. I think that's really important for teaching people about whiskey in general. Is when you can pick out individual compounds, like the furrow and this, it's like hexen or whatever. Like you can pick out the process where those things came from, and if you can introduce that to someone in an easy way. So if you give them a new make spirit, an unaged whiskey, and they go, "Wow, this tastes like this and this and this." Then when they taste like an aged version and further down the line, they can go, "Oh, so the cask has influenced this flavor, and it's removed some of this and it's added some of this." That's really fun generally to talk about. The Vithund in particular, we used it in cocktails quite a bit, just because it's, like I said, it's a really good product. It's so vibrant. There's a tasting note that I get off of a lot of really good new make spirits in general. The shell coating on Smarties, if you can smell the shell coating on Smarties, that tends to come across as quite a nice new make spirit for me, and I think that comes across very, very well in the Vithund.
I think another simplistic thing that's a good lesson to come from new make and from Vithund. You're talking about a very useful tool for teaching people where the flavor originates from, and the directions that it can therefore go in with different casks. But I think also color, it's a simple thing to us, it might seem, but a lot of people don't know. A fair few people watching this evening, I expect, probably will now, but the whiskey, before whiskey is whiskey, it's it looks like gin, it looks like vodka when it comes off the still. It's completely colorless. So that's just another cool, because that is quite a significant lesson. Although it might be one that we're in the industry, we've been into whiskey some time, it's something we take for granted. But I think if you're in a position, if you're in a bar and you're learning from someone like yourself there, and they tell you that whiskey is colorless when it comes off the still, it's for me, when I learned it, at least, it was a bit of an epiphany sort of moment where I'm like, oh no, I guess it does make sense that the color comes from the cask itself. And the casks, as you've explained, can do so much with flavor, putting it in, taking it out, doing all things and helping the maturation along the way. Unfortunately, on that note, I think Mick, I'm going to have to go and check the pub garden, make sure that we've got all the umbrellas down and the ashtrays in and the glasses cleared. I'm going to have to say, Matt, it has been brilliant. I'm so sorry I couldn't stay until the end. I do have to go and do some other jobs. But it's been so good having you here. I hope we can have you back in some form in the future, or that it's not too long until we're able to meet, because I think you're a really interesting guy. You're clearly, you're very knowledgeable. I think you communicate incredibly well. And what you guys are doing at Nc'Nean, I think it's almost, like we're cousins distillery-wise, if I may say so. At least in terms of like the approach and the general attitudes towards sustainability in particular, but also innovation and things as well, and trying new things. So Mick, if I may, if you don't mind, I'm going to have to clock out early this evening.
That's fine, mate. Don't bother clocking out. I'll cover your shift. It's not a problem.
I very much appreciate it, Mick. So Matt, I'll say goodbye to you, and goodbye to all of our patrons that have joined us. Mick and Matt will see everyone off and close up shop for the evening. So on that note, I'll say goodbye and skull.
Thank you very much, man. Lovely talking to you.
So, Carl, can you bring up the comment from Bully again, please? This comment, I love this comment, Matt. I don't know what you feel about it, but he loves the Vit Hunt. Amazing after you've been out in the cold. Warms your entire body, nice flavours. So fantastic. So Bully lives over just in Helensburgh, or over that sort of way. So yeah, over on that coast, it does get a bit on the chilly side, so he likes a wee one when he comes in. So obviously working in Nc'Nean and doing all the bits that you do and stuff, you also like going out for a walk and that as well. What goes in your hip flask?
Ooh, that's a very good question.
That's a bit of a fastball from what we previously talked about, but I thought, do you know what? This is a good talking point. I like this talking point. Let's do it.
Yeah. So I mean, there's two options. So the first one would be that I don't often carry just like a normal hip flask. If I do, it's sort of a special occasion. So the day-to-day version of a hip flask would be the thermos. So I would definitely recommend a good toddy to carry around with you
Nice.
if you're on a longer walk. So bit of whiskey, bit of honey. I'm trying to develop a recipe at the moment for a toddy that doesn't require citrus fruit.
All right, okay.
Especially in the UK, citrus fruit is not the most sustainable ingredient that you can add to a cocktail.
No, well, because we can't really grow it properly, or
because we can't grow it. It's basically it. So finding a different way of adding acid to that blend. So I've been looking at different drinking vinegars that we can sort of subtly introduce. Vinegar's a wonderful ingredient in cocktails anyway, because it's full of acetic acid. It is acetic acid, but the way acetic acid works in your mouth is that it kind of sticks to your tongue, so it elongates finishes and it makes everything a lot richer. So if you can find the balance between just enough to enhance the experience without too much to make it taste just a vinegar, it can be a really, really useful tool. A toddy in a flask, and then just for short hit flask, just go in the cupboard. And you find something nice.
Yeah, but that's quite different, mate. I like that idea as well, because I go to Murrayfield quite a lot to watch a rugby. Obviously, I'm a season ticket holder at Glasgow Warriors as well, and I've got quite a variety of hip flasks. And I mix it up a lot. Last year we released Yak Liquor, which I thought, which is basically our own version of what I tried to achieve for my hip flask. So something nice, a bit fruity, a bit warming, but not overly smoky or peaty, but just enough for that sort of time of year. And I thought, you know what, that's it. And that's what I always try to achieve with my hip flask creations. I never once thought of doing a thermos and doing a hot toddy sort of variety. So that's got me thinking now.
Well, you're more than welcome to steal the idea and take a toddy to your next rugby.
I appreciate that. I think because I would have loved that. There was a game, I think it was the Scotland-England game last year, just at the beginning of the Six Nations before we went into mental lockdown and stuff like that. Murrayfield was just a quagmire. The wind was going through it. The rain was it was cold. It was probably the worst game of rugby I've ever been to watch or played in. It was horrible. And, so much so that, I took 2 pints to my sink with me. And it took me, as opposed to it taking me like one half to drink them, it took me the full game to drink both pints. Because you just didn't want
Too
a cold.
Aye.
So something like that. So I'm going to put some thought into that, mate, I think. I'm going to put some thought into that. But that brings me up to... So that's last orders, ladies and gentlemen. Last orders. So normally when we do last orders, Matt, we introduce the whiskey scenario. So the whiskey scenario basically is where are you? What's in the glass? And who are you with, if anybody? So your perfect whiskey scenario.
I can get 2/3 of the way there. So I I had the fortune previously of running a whiskey subscription service called Whisky Me.
Oh, cool! So okay. I used to be a member of Whisky Me. The wee 50
pouches.
Yeah,
that's
brilliant.
The Nc'Nean one there.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I carry on with
run that program.
So if you're in London, guys, and you go to Black Rock Hotel, I don't know if it's still there. Is it still there?
The vending machine. Yeah,
it's actually a vending machine of the Whisky Me pouches. You have to go into reception to purchase a token to then put into the vending machine. I thought, see, when you guys launched that was amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Sorry, so apologies.
Not at all. I'm very proud of Whisky Me. It's a very cool subscription service. It's a very affordable way of tasting really interesting liquid, and it's just like it's effortless. Like you subscribe and then things arrive to your door. They fit through post boxes. They don't break because the pouches are pretty much indestructible. It's just a cool concept. But I used to be part of the team that created that. So we used to travel around Scotland and we'd film and photograph every single distillery that we featured.
Which you get an email every month.
Yeah. So I used to... Obviously, we used to taste a lot of whiskey at the distilleries, which is it's just the most incredible experience. If anyone ever gets a chance to go to any distillery and drink the produce from the distillery there, it's always great. Doesn't matter where you are. Yeah. But I think the most memorable of all the ones that we did visit, we tried 2 cask samples direct from the cask at Bowmore in the number 1 vaults. So I think we had a bourbon cask and a sherry cask, and I would have thought the sherry cask would have been the one for me, but it was like a 17-year-old bourbon cask sat in the number 1 vaults. That was incredible. Just that experience. Yeah. You can't explain the feeling that you get because it's the number 1 vaults is Scotland's oldest maturation warehouse. It's technically below sea level, so it's just like this relatively damp room that is aged for 13 years in there. Was I think got a little bit there.
Guys, just to recap on that, Matt's in number 1. The oldest maturation warehouses happen to be at Bowmore, number 1 warehouse, and they've got the old proper traditional hearth and flooring and stuff like that.
So yeah, probably be in that spot. And then for people to drink with, it's very difficult. See, I'm a massive F1 fan, which is quite counterintuitive to such an eco brand as Nc'Nean, even though lots of eco developments in motor cars have come from Formula One. So they certainly help, even if they don't help in the short term. So if I could have a dram in there with some of the drivers I would never have had the privilege of meeting, that would have been incredible. From the current crop, if I could. The thing is, he doesn't drink. I think spending time with him would be awesome, but I know he doesn't drink at all. Oh, did I cut out? Sorry.
You're gonna have to repeat the driver.
Repeat. That's no problem. So the driver was Lando Norris, who drives for McLaren. McLaren's my favourite team, but unfortunately, Lando Norris doesn't drink. He doesn't even drink the champagne when he celebrates on a podium.
In all fairness to me, I'm not a massive F1 fan, but I do. I normally, sometimes when it's on, sometimes I'll watch the first 10 laps and the last 10 laps.
Good choice.
Because they're normally the most exciting.
Yeah.
The other 60 laps that happen in the middle are just like snoozer fun. I mean, I know, I appreciate that a lot of people like it for a lot of different reasons, but the first 10 laps and the last 10 laps are the one for me, not a problem. But yeah, I don't think I've seen a Formula One driver drink any of the champagne. It just normally gets shaken up and just sprayed everywhere.
Oh, you're missing out then. You've not seen Danny Ricciardo. Whenever Danny Ricciardo's on the podium. So whoever's looking after the Mackmyra chat is a big Danny Rick fan.
That'd be our call.
He does a shoey, which is whenever he gets on the podium, he pours the champagne into his racing shoe and
nice.
And drinks it from there. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them do drink. It's just Lando Norris in particular. I think he's got a big thing for milk, which is funny. But yeah, he's a really interesting human being. He's a very young driver, and he's bringing a kind of a new attitude to Formula One, where it's being professional but not formal, which is entertaining to watch. And he's just an incredible driver. He's so much fun to watch. But yeah, if you want to find an interesting race this season, third race this year, it's going to be at Portimao, which is in Portugal, and it's the most beautiful track. It's really undulating, so there's loads of hills, and even just like watching the camera work on that track is really engaging. So you don't even have to worry if the race is interesting. Like, it's always visually beautiful.
Okay, cool. See, I always like Monaco as a track because they literally shut the city down. Do you know what I mean? They literally shut the city down to hold a race over a couple of days, like, do you know what I mean? And that always amazes me because I've been to Monaco. Do you know what I mean? Not in a dead posh way, guys. I wasn't like drinking champagne with kings and queens and princes and stuff like that at casinos. Oh no, definitely not. No. I was in the Navy at the time, and we were both just at the coast, and we went down to Monaco for the day, sort of thing. Like, do you know what I mean? So walk around. Beautiful place, but no. So that always amazed me. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's the same with Singapore as well, isn't it?
Yeah, they do a street circuit at Singapore. There's a couple of street circuits now. They've been trying to introduce Vietnam for a couple of years, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But that would have been fun. I'd love to go to Monaco. I'd really like to. You can drive or cycle like the actual racetrack. I think that would be amazing. I've cycled. Yas Marina, which is Abu Dhabi, the last race of the season for the last few years.
Nice.
I was doing some work there with fluid movement. I got to cycle around that track, which was
that's awesome, mate. That
really good fun. It's not the most fun track to watch race wise, but it was really cool just to be on the track and
for sure. I'm a massive rugby fan, so to go to away grounds and to just like, even if it's like a day before to get into the ground and like step onto the ground and have a look around where, your heroes, your players, or in your case, your drivers are going to be performing when you go to watch them is second to none. Do you know what I mean? But when you think about rugby grounds, they're all just like 100 metre by like 70 metre pitches of grass.
Yeah.
But you can say that's just like 2 miles of tarmac, mate. You know what I mean? But it means something to you because that's what you're passionate about.
Well, I mean, you can't beat that experience going into a stadium, walking up the steps, and then like the pitch is slowly revealed. Like,
it's amazing.
It's unbelievable, and that can be anywhere. I fully agree on that front.
Happy days. Right, guys. That's all we've got time for this evening in Mackmyra Inn. Me and Matt have both got to shoot home for our tea before he gets put in the dog. Matt, first of all, mate, thank you very much for joining us this evening. You've been an absolute star. So, yeah, again, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a lovely chat.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate. So, guys, next week on Monday, don't forget to tune in to the Mackmyra Inn for our ladies' night at the inn with our landlady, Moa. and our 2 VIP patrons in Nicola and Erin. On Wednesday, we have the Bjork Sav launch show. So we're going to have Angela with us. And we've got 4 guests at the moment as well to join us through that show. So it'll probably be a slightly longer than normal show on the Wednesday. And then next Friday for the Mackmyra Inn, we have the people, the lovely people, Aaron and Petra at Drink Whiskey with Friends or Love Whiskey on Instagram. So we've got quite a nice week planned up. It should be lovely. So please, guys, pre-order your Bjork Sav for release on Wednesday and tune into those 3 shows that I mentioned there. And again, Matt, thank you very much for joining me, sir. Do you have any parting words for our lovely guests?
No, enjoy whiskey. That's probably the best advice I can possibly give.
In whichever way you want to enjoy it.
Indeed.
Brilliant. Matt, thank you very much, sir. And good night, ladies and gentlemen. Skål.